People always want to have the worst news about Xbox. They want to be the first ones to announce it. They want to be the first ones to kind of get out there and get ahead of it and kind of go, oh, see, I told you. See, I told you this is why Microsoft sucks. Nanny, nanny, boo, boo. They're garbage. This is why they stink. This is the exact reason why we get so much negativity around Xbox and why I don't like to do that. I like to be as positive as possible. Does that mean that everything is positive? Absolutely not. There's no such thing as a perfect company. But when it comes to all this type of news, like, oh, Xbox is gonna close this or not support that, or they're gonna close this studio or close that studio, no, just no, that's not happening. So Phil Spencer had already put his full support behind Arcane Austin during the Kind of Funny interview, and now we have more confirmation that they're not actually planning to shut down Redfall Studio Arcane. Some people were maybe rumoring that it could be or that it would be or whatever due to that game getting poor critical reception. I think Xbox is in a much better situation to where, apparently a lot of people played this game, and they don't think it was the miss that a lot of the media thought it was. According to Xbox Game Studios boss Matt Booty, who was asked if the studio will remain opening following Redfall's disappointing launch, he said that's the plan. They're hard at work on updates and continued content for Redfall. Following several delays, the first major Xbox exclusive from Bethesda released with various technical issues, and it reviewed rather poorly, garnering a 56 on the Xbox Series X and S. Redfall received its first major patch this past week, delivering incremental improvements to gameplay, combat, AI, environment, and stability with the multiplayer, UI, and various bug fixes, according to Arcane. It said, and I quote, "We're grateful to see that millions of you explored the quaint but dangerous open world of Redfall. We recognize that we still have work to do, and we plan to address as much as we can as quickly as we can." Matt Booty also claimed that Redfall was getting, quote, good play in Xbox Game Pass. It was a miss, but how much of a miss? I want to support them to be able to keep working to deliver the game that they had in mind. I feel accountable, but we could have done a better job with Arcane, according to Matt Booty, which was echoing recent comments from Phil Spencer himself on the Kind of Funny Games podcast. We didn't do a good job early on in engaging Arcane Austin to really help them understand what it meant to be part of Xbox and part of First Party, and use some of our internal resources to help them move along that journey even faster. We left them to work on the game. They're a very talented team. I love that team, and I still do, and I would totally bet on them to do another great game. But when Matt Booty and ZeniMax president Jamie Leader sit down, I think we can engage earlier with our different studios. So I guess we can finally put that to rest. People were saying that Microsoft would probably close it down. I feel like Microsoft absolutely can't close down any studios right now. There's already, they had the game was bad. It was an okay game. It wasn't great. I feel like it was better than a 56, but that's neither here nor there. But you absolutely cannot close down a studio, else that just brings back all that negativity, and people go, oh, well, that's the typical Microsoft. That's the Xbox that we expect. We always see them close things down, despite the fact that Sony literally closed down a studio recently and canceled 4 or 5 games or whatever it was. Nobody links Sony with that kind of stuff, despite Sony having a long history of closing down studios and things like that. So, again, there's different minds about this kind of thing. I knew that they weren't going to close it down. Arcane is probably going to get back to doing some incredible first-party games and things like that. But again, we're going to have to wait to see probably years before we see what they can work on and kind of get these things out there in time. So yeah, I think that's pretty cool. No plan to shut down that studio. That's great news, I'm sure, for everybody. The other thing is people are really talking about this in a weird way because Microsoft confirmed that it's no longer developing games for Xbox One. People were like, oh man, they're dropping support for consoles and blah, blah, blah. It's the typical nonsense that you expect, but they confirmed that they're no longer developing games that run natively on that platform. According to them, it says, we've moved on to Gen 9, according to Matt Booty. That doesn't mean Microsoft is leaving last generation behind. While there won't be native Xbox One versions of Xbox Series X and S games, like Forza Motorsport, Xbox One players will be able to stream current gen first-party titles, such as Forza Motorsport and Starfield using xCloud, including with Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. That's how we're going to maintain support, according to Matt Booty. He's been doing a round of interviews over the past week, coinciding with Sunday's Xbox Game Showcase. He also told Axios that both game players and the industry in general need to realize that the most big games now have development cycles of around half a decade, but having aggressively grown his portfolio of first-party studios in recent years, Booty believes that Xbox has actually turned the corner in its efforts to deliver at least 4 first-party games every year. And he also claimed that Starfield will have the fewest bugs of any Bethesda game in their history. So I guess that's pretty good news, pretty high praise from the head of Xbox Game Studios. Again, like, these are things that you would maybe expect them to say and things like that, but it was well timed for them to come out and stop supporting Xbox One. If you look at it, I think that was pretty obvious, since even though Redfall wasn't great, both Redfall, Hi-Fi Rush, these games weren't on Xbox One, so we're starting to see much less support on it. Very few things are supporting Xbox One, in fact, at all. And I think, when it comes down to it, Xbox Series S is for those that maybe are timid to kind of jump into the conversation of a next generation or whatever. You know what I mean? Maybe you don't want to spend that, half a grand on on a new Xbox or whatever. So you have that option. I think that's pretty cool. Microsoft is, in my opinion, doing a really good job of making sure that people have the most options that I've ever seen in the history of video games, and you gotta love that, and you gotta respect that, I think, anyway. At least I do. I think that they've been pretty brilliant with this stuff. Are they perfect? No. I've always been on the record as saying that there's no such thing as the perfect company, and Microsoft, again, is definitely far from perfect. But I do think that they're getting a ton right, and Microsoft has a lot going for it right now. So we'll see how that turns out. But again, this doesn't mean they're not supporting consoles. It doesn't mean that they're not going to be closing Arcane because they had a bad game. I mean, how cynical do you got to be to think you put out one bad game and then all of a sudden you're going to, get your studio shuttered? That's a terrible way to live. I think that the fact of the matter is that Microsoft realistically had, a bad game. They are doing their best to rectify that. They're going to continue supporting it, and I would bet that Arcane goes back to something single player that we haven't really seen before. So it should be fun to see what they can actually come out with, and I'm excited by that. Hopefully we can keep all these studios around and putting out the type of games that they want to. I'm glad that they allow them to kind of take a chance on different types of games and things like that. So that's always cool. Love to see that. Love to see that Microsoft is kind of making all the news right now. It's happening. People don't want to admit it, but yeah, Microsoft is killing it. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions on it. I'm Crap Gamer. This has been Crap Gamer Reviews. Thanks for watching. Rack 'em up. Crap Gamer out.